Some motorhomes have gotten so unreliable and so expensive to repair that dealers won't even retail them anymore.
Gas prices, as we know, averaging $5 a gallon across the country. Are those high prices affecting the sales of RVs?
The situation's only getting worse day by day.
No trade-ins, no financing, no showroom floor just turned away. Cracks, leaks, electrical failures, rejected warranties. And brands buyers used to trust are now sinking fast. Inventory is stacking up, lenders are pulling back, and owners are trapped in rigs they can't sell. This isn't normal depreciation, this is a wake-up call. So, which motorhomes crossed the line? And who's next? Winnebago, tech, that outran testing. Once trusted for strength, this brand's tech dream turned nightmare fast. Built on decades of craftsmanship, it stood for durability, dependability, and quiet pride. But during the recent production surge, that legacy collided with modern technology, and the result has been brutal on both owners and dealers. The trouble began when Winnebago started integrating advanced battery systems and digital control modules meant to attract new buyers looking for off-grid freedom. The problem is, those systems were rushed through validation. By late 2023, dealership reports from Indiana, Texas, and Florida showed repeat electrical shutdowns tied to voltage misreads. Warranty departments logged the pattern first, noting failures in cold climates, where temperature compensation software could not keep pace. An internal communication labeled as File Code WINB 2418L quietly circulated through service networks. It described what engineers called thermal isolation irregularities. In plain terms, the energy packs were freezing mid-charge, while dashboards still displayed a full battery icon. That mismatch led to stranded vehicles, canceled trips, and a flood of warranty replacements. Federal recall record 24V142 confirmed at least 6 safety complaints involving electrical overheating. Average repair costs reached $13,700 per unit excluding labor. Auction listings now show recent Winnebago units clearing at roughly $112,000, down from $149,000 just 1 year earlier. That 25% drop is not depreciation from age, it is market distrust. Dealers have since begun tightening resale valuations. Banks shortened loan terms from 120 months to 84, flagging these builds as elevated risk. Each financial institution frames it differently, but the meaning is the same. Lenders have lost faith. The deeper reason lies in the mismatch between innovation speed and field testing. Winnebago chased silence, efficiency, and independence, but skipped endurance. Every failure on the lot is now proof that advanced does not always mean improved. And as this brand fights to regain trust, another company is discovering that weight reduction can cost far more than it saves. Keystone, Xianj, towable. Until it tears, it promised light towing freedom, but delivered fractures dealers can't ignore. For years, the name carried weight on dealer lots because it looked dependable and sounded practical. But the recent downturn exposed how that balance was built on thinner steel, tighter budgets, and silent shortcuts that now haunt every franchise carrying the badge. The first red flags surfaced inside regional service centers during late 2022. Weld failures near hitch assemblies and frame joints began appearing on repair logs across Indiana, Missouri, and South Dakota. At first, these were marked as isolated incidents. But by spring of 2023, internal communication KSB2309F landed in inboxes across the network. It urged inspections on all units produced before week 27. The bulletin reached the field after the summer rush, long after hundreds of units had already bent, cracked, or been patched on the road. Technicians described seeing daylight through seams that should have been solid steel. Photographs circulated, showing gaps wider than 1/4 of an inch, widening after every trip. Each structural correction averaged $4,900 in material and labor, nearly 10% of the original purchase price. Warranty data confirmed the pattern, and dealers began quietly categorizing certain production runs as wholesale only. By the end of 2024, auction reports recorded an average resale of $39,500 for units that had retailed near $55,000. That loss of $15,500 in under a year is more than normal depreciation. It is evidence of mechanical distrust. Financing departments took notice, adjusting residual values downward to prevent more negative equity. The real cause was design pressure to achieve half-ton towable. Keystone thinned steel and trusted computer math over real stress. It failed in motion. Every hitch creak now reminds buyers that promises can bend and break long before the warranty expires. Before we move on, take a second to support real reporting that actually exposes what's happening behind those glossy brochures. Hit like, subscribe for updates, and share your own experience below. It helps others see the truth before they buy. Van Lee. Luxury without support. Luxury met its breaking point when craftsmanship outpaced corporate support. Founded under the respected Tiffin umbrella, the company sold pride as much as product. For a time, it delivered both. Solid wood cabinetry, hand-fitted trim, and southern-built quality gave the brand a reputation that seemed untouchable. But beneath that craftsmanship, the numbers were quietly collapsing. In mid-2023, the Red Bay, Alabama plant slowed production to a whisper. Supplier costs had climbed 19% year over year, while demand for high-trim fifth wheels had dropped 32% in the same window. That margin collapse made each unit a financial loss before it ever left the assembly floor. Payroll records later revealed a workforce that fell from over 500 employees to only 148 by June. Within 60 days, production lines went silent, and customer calls began returning empty tones. Warranty portals went dark soon after. Every open service claim was handed to third-party administrators, but funding for those accounts was frozen. Dealers received no parts, no replacement trim kits, and no clarity. For owners, it meant even the smallest repair, a drawer face, a slide motor, a custom hinge, became a months-long scavenger hunt. By January 2025, Van Lee units fetched $72,600 at auction, down from $128,900. A 43% plunge caused by abandonment, not age. Rapid growth outpaced infrastructure. Mismatched parts, missed corrections, and rising repair costs forced the parent company to shutter operations entirely. Today, Van Lee exists mostly as a nameplate on forgotten warranty cards, beautiful, detailed, and unsustainable. And while that chapter closed quietly, the next brand's troubles would echo far louder across dealer lots nationwide. Thor Motor Coach. Affordable Class A. That dealers walked away from a budget breakthrough on paper, now a refund machine in reality. It offered space, comfort, and that commanding highway view that made every buyer feel like they were stepping up. The company sold the idea that luxury could finally be affordable, and for a brief moment, the promise worked. But in the last few production cycles, that affordability has come at a cost the entire industry can now measure in dollars, downtime, and damaged trust. The unraveling started quietly between 2021 and 2023. Dealers began noticing repeat service claims on units less than 12 months old. The issues ranged from leaking roof seams to warped slide walls and intermittent electrical shorts behind the dashboard. One internal document labeled TMC-2304 outlined a retrofit requiring full dashboard removal, an 8-hour operation for factory technicians, and nearly 12 hours for independent shops. Warranty departments soon recognized a pattern. Across Florida, Missouri, and Arizona, dealers logged 190 leak-related claims during that span. Each averaged $4,200 in parts and labor. The cumulative financial pressure forced multiple locations to classify certain Thor units as return risk, meaning no resale without pre-clearance from corporate. Market reports showed Thor units once priced at $139,000, selling for $94,500, a 32% fall that erased down payments and alarmed lenders. Financing terms shrank to 84 months as technicians blamed cost stacking lighter, panels, thinner sealant, and rushed assembly small savings that snowballed into major structural failures. Dealers no longer call Thor the affordable option. They call it the refund machine. And as the brand struggles to regain balance, another corporate giant is learning that growth without control can collapse even faster. Thor Industries. The empire cracking from within. An empire built on acquisitions now buckles beneath its own weight. For a long stretch, it worked. Scale meant leverage, and leverage meant profit. But after the production surge that followed 2020, that empire began to fracture from the inside. Dealers, suppliers, and investors all started asking the same question: how much growth can one company actually control before quality disappears altogether? The first signs appeared in the spring of 2024, when an internal audit labeled TIRQ 2410 surfaced. The report documented that 31% of inspected units left factories with measurable assembly defects. In isolation, that number might have seemed manageable. Multiplied across output, topping 1,400 and units per week in Indiana alone, it became a logistical disaster. Each defect translated to warranty costs, and each warranty claim erased profit. Financial records revealed warranty costs jumped from $1,190 in 2019 to $2,870, by 2024 doubling liabilities. Dealers slowed orders as Thor's unchecked expansion backfired. Too many brands, conflicting systems, and impossible quotas. Production shortcuts multiplied into leaks, misalignments, and electrical flaws that destroyed its reputation. Today, Thor's size no longer feels like security. It feels like exposure. Dealers call it the empire of exceptions, where every build demands an apology before a sale. And while that corporate storm brews quietly behind factory walls, another old name is facing a much louder problem, one that literally started to smoke. Fleetwood. The reliable name that started smoldering. A household name of dependability now faces fires it can't extinguish. For decades, the name meant reliability on wheels. Mechanics praised its simple layouts. Owners trusted its wiring. And dealers never feared a recall notice landing on their desk. But then came the redesign. A well-intended modernization, meant to keep pace with newer competitors, ended up lighting a fire that the brand is still trying to put out. The shift began during the production transition of 2021. Fleetwood replaced its conventional wiring harnesses with multiplex electrical systems, designed to simplify control panels and reduce weight. On paper, it looked efficient. In the field, it became combustible. Within 2 years, service technicians began logging reports of overheated dashboards and short circuits traced back to the new harness routing behind the steering column. By the summer of 2023, warranty departments compiled enough evidence to trigger an internal investigation. What they found was staggering. The redesigned harness shared components with the Ford F53 chassis, but lacked adequate insulation at key bends. The oversight caused friction points that eventually burned through wire sheathing. That defect was formally documented under Federal Recall 24V208, listed as dash harness insulation breach potential fire hazard. 11 confirmed cases of visible smoke were logged, and 3 included surface melting. Repairs demanded 8 to 12 labor hours and about $5,200 total, turning service bays into chaos. One stable Fleetwood faced a public meltdown as resale values plunged from $189,000 to $132,000. The deeper damage was trust proof that modernization without validation can make even history itself burn. If you want to stay ahead of the next collapse before it hits your driveway or wallet, make sure you're subscribed. Every upcoming breakdown exposes the newest failures the industry hopes you'll never hear about until it's too late. Heartland. Cheap adhesive, costly consequences, glue meant to bind dreams together, instead tore a reputation apart. It was a brand that earned loyalty the slow way, through long weekends and steady miles. But that reputation began to unravel, literally, when cost engineering overruled craftsmanship. What started as an attempt to streamline production turned into one of the most expensive adhesive failures in the company's history. Between 2021 and 2024, service networks across the Midwest began documenting delamination on sidewalls, roof seams, and structural joints. Warranty teams noted the same 3 words repeated on repair tickets: bond failure observed. An internal communication labeled HSB 21067 advised technicians to perform a surface scuff and rebond procedure. In theory, it sounded efficient. In practice, it was cosmetic. The problem extended deeper than the gel coat. The chemical bond itself was failing from the inside out. The adhesive used during those production years cured too fast in humid environments. When humidity levels rose above 50%, the chemical set before it could fully penetrate the composite layers. That microscopic separation created voids invisible to the naked eye. Once exposed to heat cycles or vibration, the panels began to bubble and split. By late 2024, structural warranty claims skyrocketed, 312% above prior lines. Independent shops charged $4,000 to $5,000 and $200 per side, erasing 1/8 of each unit's value. Early 2025 auctions averaged $27,500, forcing dealers to label entire production runs as wholesale-only inventory. Heartland's story is not about bad luck. It is about shortcuts disguised as innovation. When the bond between materials breaks, the bond of trust breaks with it. And as those walls come apart, the next manufacturer's foundation is beginning to sag under its own weight. Forest River. The volume kings that lost control production speed became the downfall of America's biggest motorhome manufacturer. For nearly a decade, it was the name stamped on more driveways and dealer lots than any other manufacturer in the country. Volume was the strategy, affordability was the hook, and speed was the promise. That combination worked until speed became the enemy. Somewhere between record production goals and record profits, quality control simply could not keep up. The warning signs appeared in late 2022, when service centers began logging roof seam failures on brand new units. What began as minor leaks became full structural sag across several production plants. Internal Bulletin FRB 23. 112 acknowledged sealant adhesion anomalies on over 270 units built in Plant Code 102. The message was clear: inspect before delivery. The problem was, the damage had already been sealed inside. By mid-2023, moisture damage spread beyond the initial batch. Laminate panels bubbled, mildew formed, and southern dealers halted trade-ins. Each roof reseal cost about $4,200, erasing margins. Auction prices plunged from $38,000 to $28,000, a 26% drop that transformed confident owners into reluctant sellers overnight. The cause, according to technicians involved, was production overload. Plants were pushed to produce 1,250 units per week, leaving no time for proper adhesive cure cycles. Faster output meant wetter roofs, weaker seams, and thinner inspections. Forest River's empire of efficiency became a lesson in restraint. When you chase numbers, craftsmanship gets left behind. And as their repair bays overflow, another brand once celebrated for entry-level freedom is now collapsing even faster under its own weight. Jayco, The lightweight disaster. Everyone saw coming. Once the pride of families, now the symbol of collapse. But in the last few production years, that image has cracked beneath the surface. The company's push toward lighter construction and faster assembly has exposed the cost of modern shortcuts, and the numbers behind it are impossible to ignore. It began quietly in 2022, when regional service centers started filing repeat claims labeled soft floor, leaking seam, and underbelly sag. At first, the calls were treated as isolated, but by mid-2024, warranty data painted a clearer picture. Nearly 47% of all registered units from that period required structural repair within the first 18 months of ownership. Internal documentation verified that claim, and dealers in Indiana, Ohio, and Texas began marking entire VIN ranges as "do not retail." The reason traces back to weight reduction. Jayco's design teams shaved pounds wherever possible, thinner plywood, lighter underpanels, and expanded composite flooring. On paper, that made production efficient and towing easier. In practice, it destroyed durability. Once moisture entered the structure, the panels flexed, seams pulled apart, and the floor began to sponge beneath each step. Repair centers estimate the average fix at $3,600 in materials and labor, roughly 1/5 of the original purchase price. Financial analysts note that auction values dropped from $24,999 to around $16,800 in less than 2 years. That loss outpaced depreciation rates for even large Class A coaches. For many owners, the issue was not the repair bill, but the collapse of value itself. Financing partners slashed trade-in estimates by $3,000 to $5,000. Proving a hard truth: when manufacturers chase speed, owners inherit the losses that follow. And that's the reality. The motorhomes market is shifting fast, and the risks are bigger than most people realize. If you own one of these rigs, or you've dealt with a repair nightmare, a trade-in rejection, or a brand that let you down, drop your story in the comments. That's how we help each other avoid the traps. If this saves you time, money, or stress, hit the like button. And if you want more breakdowns, updates, and insider warnings like this, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications.